Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Tea with Tina podcast. On today's episode, we're going to chat all about perfectionism, and for those of you watching on YouTube, this is my third iteration of trying to bring the podcast to video. So I love the idea of the video. I just didn't have a really good background, but I rigged up my own. I live in an apartment. I use my plant wall. We have the pretty UV purple light in the background. I have a ring light. It's kind of ridiculous the way this setup is, but we're making it work. I'm trying. I also don't know how long I want this podcast episode to be. I want to keep them on the shorter side for upload reasons. It can get very lengthy to upload these videos to YouTube. So fingers crossed it all works. I can maybe even break it into parts if the video is being annoying and not letting me upload the whole thing. Okay, so we are going to talk about perfectionism. I kind of wanted to give you an update. I got a haircut, for those of you who are watching, literally just on Thursday. I decided to keep my curtain bangs, which I still love, but I wanted a couple little shorter pieces that almost act as a bang, but I didn't want full-blown bangs. So when I style it, which they're being a little finicky right now, I actually don't really know what they're doing. But when I want them to kind of be more in the middle, so I don't just have my big forehead in the center, I feel like I have hair everywhere now. I can, do that. So I'm pretty happy with it. My hair is getting really long. So yeah. I also have a dermatologist appointment today, but we're just progress, not perfection. We're recording this before the dermatology appointment. I do have some updates for you guys though, as always. So just little life updates. One, this weekend was a total washout as far as rain goes. We did absolutely nothing, although I watched a movie that is great. If you love older movies, as in late 80s, early 90s, that are kind of funny horror, this movie's for you. It's called A Vampire's Kiss, starring the infamous Nick Cage. This was one of his breakout, I don't want to say breakout movie roles, but one of his movie roles before he got really famous. And it's a kind of slow start, but if you go into it with a fun attitude and go, his acting is phenomenal. He basically gets bit by a vampire. There's a couple fan theories about this, and he slowly turns into a vampire, and he's this kind of New York City businessman, typical kind of businessman. He actually looks like he models his talking and mannerisms after Donald Trump back in the day. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts if you've watched it or if you watch it. So I definitely recommend A Vampire's Kiss, okay? Also, as far as thyroid goes, I posted on my Instagram, I am finally on thyroid meds. So this has been a long journey coming. I mean, I feel like I've known something has been off for probably years, and with my family history of thyroid issues, I knew something was up, but as of October, I officially got testing, and we've monitored, and we've kind of realized yes, you do have hypothyroidism, you have Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune condition, the number one autoimmune condition that causes hypothyroidism in the United States. So I just started meds probably a little less than a week ago, and I do notice a difference. I don't know if it's placebo, but I do feel a lot better. I don't know if you guys can tell with recording and stuff, but I feel like I'm more using my hands. I could talk more. You also might see Mr. Binks pop up here because he wants to jump up on my lap. Oh, yep, there he is. The joy of video, right? So I'm on the meds. I feel a lot better. I'm still dealing with my groin injury. It's surprisingly gotten better since I've been on meds, so I don't know if maybe inflammation played a role in the injury. So that's something I'm still navigating. I actually did my first lower body day yesterday, full lower body, but I did a ton of stretching. It was an hour-and-a-half session total, so fingers crossed I have no pain, right? I'm in physical therapy for that. So that's where we're at. Reading, I have been definitely into more self-help books lately. Self-help books lately. I think a couple podcast episodes ago, I was kind of mentioning how I revisited my spirituality, and I am a Christian. I grew up Roman Catholic, but I would kind of classify myself more as a broad Christian right now. I just believe in God. I believe in energy, higher power, spirituality. I'm not super strict about it, and no shame on you if you, whatever you believe, even if you're an atheist or you just, you know what I mean? I don't care. I really don't, but I do want to say that I believe spirituality in general is a big component of health, and I can make a whole podcast episode about that. But spirituality is good for the soul. Knowing that you believe in something, I think putting some extrinsic, like knowing that your problems aren't all because of you, knowing that sometimes there's other causes for it, can help us relieve stress. Plus there's a community aspect. If you do ever get into like church or a group, even it could be a Facebook group, or you listen to a podcast sermon, you know, it could be anything, which is what I've been doing. I've been listening to a lot of sermons because I'm really picky with churches. I don't like the human influence, the drama, the style. A lot of the times are things that I don't like, but I do crave that community. So I'm kind of church shopping, church hunting right now. But I've been listening to sermons. I've been reading self-help books. I personally love Joyce Myers because she's very realistic with including religion into her everyday life. Like her podcast is called Enjoying Everyday Life. So I've been into that, but now I'm kind of taking a shift. I actually just picked up a book. It's called Happy Place. It like just released literally I think a couple days ago, but it is a funny romance novel. So definitely different from what I'm used to. I usually do like true crime, murder, mystery, psychological thriller, or self-help, but you know, I wanted to lighten the mood a little bit, so that's what I'm going to be reading next. I do have a Facebook messenger group that is a book club chat. So if you would like to be a part of that, we're very casual. We just kind of share books and our thoughts and things like that. No pressure. Let me know. Message me. I would link it, but I don't think you can link a Facebook message group. So let me know and I will add you to that group. Okay, just shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, email me, whatever. I'll add you. Okay. So I think that's kind of just an update on everything that's been going on. There's probably been a lot more, but I just want to give you the gist. So now let's kind of dive into perfectionism. So I wanted to chat about perfectionism because I feel like it's something that definitely affects me and has affected me my whole life. You're talking to a 4.0 GPA student, like always got A's. If I got a B or C, like I beat myself up. Even a low A, I would be mad. And, you know, part of this was because a lot of my friends, my two best friends, were very intelligent. The one, she studied her butt off and was just like really smart, and she just naturally got better grades. Binks looks like he's gonna come up and destroy my setup. That's my black cat, by the way, Binks. And then my other friend, she had more of that natural smarts where she could like not study at all and she would still get an A. So I was someone who had to study a lot to absorb the information, but if I did put in the effort, I would get a good grade. Some subjects came more naturally than others. But that was one perfectionism point of me. I also feel that a lot of my perfectionism stemmed from childhood. My parents acted a certain way. I feel like, I won't dive too deep into that, but I feel like they treated me a certain way when I act a certain way. So if I, you know, was good in their eyes, maybe quiet, well-behaved, you know, just kind of shut up, sat in the corner, like I got praise. Or if I acted another way, I wouldn't get praise, or I might have gotten ignored. And I saw this through my parents' interactions with other people as well. If they acted a certain way, maybe they would get made fun of. We would talk crap about them, people watch, whatever. And this sounds terrible, you know, I don't necessarily agree with this. This is just how I grew up. And if they acted a way that was favorable, they reacted another way. So in my brain, I thought about this and I was like, oh, so if I act this way, I will get this reaction. And if I act this way, that's bad. There he is again. So that's bad. So over time, I kind of developed this mindset that if I act a certain way, or if I give my all and act 100%, I thought he was chewing plants. If I act 100%, they can't be wrong, right? Oh my goodness. He's trying to eat my plants. Get down. Come on. Sorry for those of you listening that like probably have no idea what's going on. My cat just loves to be curious, and since I have a new setup, he wants to investigate the plants and the shelves now. But anyway, yeah, I figured if I act a certain way, and if I'm so perfect that I don't mess anything up, then nobody can be mad. Because I'm also a people pleaser, and I feel like that goes hand in hand with perfectionism. I get really upset if I inconvenience someone, like literally down to like the server brought out something wrong or forgot to bring out my ketchup when I asked for ketchup. And like, I hate the idea of asking her because then she has to go and grab ketchup now, even though it was her fault. Like, I just hate making people do extra work, and I'm not really sure why. I just hate inconveniencing them. I hate upsetting them, even if it's like not my fault, not their fault. Like, maybe I get sick for something and I have to cancel. Like, that makes me feel really, really bad. Because I feel like I'm upsetting them and I ruin their day and we had plans. And again, I really think that kind of has to go back to my parents now that I mentioned that. This sounds so terrible because I feel like I'm shit talking my parents, but I'm just saying it as it is. There were instances with my parents where if I said I didn't want to do something, they expressed like great stress about it, and they were very upset, like, oh my gosh, Tina, really? Ugh, this is terrible. Now we can't do this. Like, it was all negative associations, not like, oh, that's okay, you don't feel good, or, you know, that's no big deal. Like, there was never that. I feel like it wasn't always a severely negative reaction for, like, if I didn't want to do something, or I couldn't do something, or I got an upset stomach, or I had anxiety. Like, there was always that lingering in the background. So there's a lot of different things. Maybe some of you can relate to maybe how you grew up, how your parents, caregivers, siblings, maybe it was a teacher, friends, whatever, treated you, and something probably led to your perfectionism if you look back far enough, right? And just looking at my notes over here, because I took some notes about perfectionism, that was just background, a little bit of background about mine. There's a lot to it, but those are some big ones that I can think of. And of course, Binks decides to play with the jingly ball right now. That's okay. Perfectionism prevents you from taking action. Often we won't do something unless it's perfect or something unique with yourself. So, do you ever think about that? Like, do you ever experience that? I see that a lot in the fitness space. We often won't take action unless it's perfect. Or if we decide to pursue something, we have to have everything in line before we do it. And I catch myself doing this. I think from just being in the space so long, I've been better about it. But for instance, like if I wanted to maybe start powerlifting, say I want to do a powerlifting meet, okay? And that was my goal. Well, someone with perfectionism might be like, okay, so I'm gonna get powerlifting gear. I need all the best powerlifting gear. I need chalk. I need the best powerlifting program. I gotta set up my meet. I need the, knee sleeves, lifting straps. I need a powerlifting diet. So like, see, you're doing everything instead of just dabbling and just starting something. Where did it come on? Mr. Banks. Yeah, you have to have everything perfect. Or if you want to run, you got to get the best shoes, you got to get the best program, you got to get the best meals, and instead you need to just start. And I feel like a lot of people are plagued with some sort of perfectionism in the fitness realm, even if it's like, I just feel like I need to lose weight before I start. That's a big one. That is a big one. Sorry, there's dirt also being spilled everywhere. Guys, I'm doing my progress, not perfection right now too. I'm just showing up with this podcast. But I just, getting back to it, I just need to lose like 20 pounds and then I can finally start lifting. I never really understood that one. Like, I get it from a confidence perspective. Like, I just need to lose the weight and then I can start. Like, you feel like you need to be more advanced to start maybe working out with a trainer or something like that. That's not the case. I mean, you may be more limited with what you can do if you are a beginner working with a trainer, but that's going to be even more valuable as far as watching your form and kind of getting a head start on certain things and really accelerating your progress. So that could be a whole nother story within itself. But I feel I see that a lot in the health and fitness space, and I'm sure there's a lot of areas in your life that you just are kind of paralyzed because you don't want to start unless it's perfect, because you're afraid if it's not perfect, you're going to fail, right? So yeah. Now, something else about myself that kind of relates to this that I thought was interesting, and maybe some of you can relate, is that I find that I get excited when I'm kind of at a lower point in my life, and I feel like sometimes I'll almost subconsciously create a lower point. Like let's say you're cruising along, you're doing perfect, you're making, not perfect, see, but you're making progress, you're doing good. Maybe I'm good with my fitness routine, my diet's pretty good, I'm making progress, but it's nothing fantastic, right? But I'm doing good. It's almost like I get bored, and to go to the next level, things have to get uncomfortable. So I face resistance. So what I do instead is I almost put myself in a lower point, not necessarily rock bottom, but let's say rock bottom for a good visual. And then I build myself up from there because it's exciting to start from one. It's kind of like when you start a new video game, or for me when I play Sims and I get that like dirty starter home where it's so easy to spend like a couple dollars, a couple simoleons, and fix it up to make it look nice. Like I get a lot of like dopamine hits from that. And I feel like I see that in my life too, where I'm like, oh, I just gotta start by drinking more water and walking, and like, wow, I already checked stuff off my list. I'm doing so good. So I'm really good at starting, but when things get tough, which I've definitely gotten a lot better at, but that is where I struggle. And I feel like probably a lot of you can relate to that, right? Because that in the middle, that's where it gets messy. That's where things get challenging. That's where it really challenges our ability to keep going even when things suck. And we might miss workout days and eat bad meals, but we have to keep going. And you know, this kind of relates back to my mantra that I said already is, you know, messy action. I repeat this to myself all the time when I feel uncomfortable and like of doing something. Like I went into the gym and did my lower body workout. It was all body weight stuff, very light weights, very uncomfortable for me considering like when you go into the gym and you were able to deadlift, you know, 150, 200 pounds, squat the barbell, like do all kinds of crazy stuff. And now you're humbled with, you know, machines and body weight stuff. I kept telling myself messy action, just keep showing up. Progress, not perfection. So if you have any mantras, you could steal mine. That could also help you get in the right mindset. Another thing that I struggle with as far as perfectionism goes, again, you might relate, is I find myself struggling with perfectionism if I've had a perfect day or a seemingly perfect day. You ever have that day where like you just did everything right. You had the perfect energy, you slept great, you did the laundry, you put it away, you even went out and had some fun. It was just an awesome day. Like I feel like then I set the bar and that's like where I have to go now. Like nothing below that, like anything below that will disappoint me. If I don't reach that day, it pisses me off. So I do struggle with that as well. And again, I think that goes back to starting at rock bottom, and when I'm building up and get all those kind of dopamine hits of, oh, I'm building up, I'm leveling up, I'm doing better, and then you hit that peak, that perfect day of kind of where you visualized yourself and wanted to be, and then you have a not so perfect day. I don't know, that just hits me really hard. It really, really does. And there's some causes. I mean, let's talk about some causes of perfectionism. Perfectionism comes down to like a fear of judgment or disapproval of others, right? That kind of goes back to like my parents in school. Like, you know, I wanted to make my teachers happy. I wanted to make my parents happy. I wanted to get a positive reaction out of people. I never wanted to see people disappointed. And I also probably don't really want to disappoint myself, which is okay, but I think it's taken to the extreme. And, you know, some common perfectionist traits, I would say, is all or nothing thinking, which again, we see in the fitness space. And I feel like we see the perfectionism trait in the fitness space because a lot of people who want to pursue fitness, you know, even me, I would like to pursue it because I can max out my health, right? If I do X, Y, and Z, my health is going to be better and I could live longer and I'm going to feel better and I'm going to look better. So you're leveling up that idea of perfectionism. And I feel like people with that mindset who want to better themselves, a lot of the times they are perfectionists. And with that comes that all or nothing thinking, which I think also kind of goes back to why once we have a less than perfect day, we just want to give up, right? You know, if we set a goal for 5 days a week to work out and we only hit 4, we say fuck it and let's not do it ever again, right? Or, you know, we either have to work out and, you know, hit our max heart rate at this range or burn this many calories, and if we burn less, it was a wash. And what I've learned with all or nothing thinking, which I'm starting to incorporate a lot more in my coaching practices, and you'll see it in my page more, is changing your mindset and the way we think about habits. For instance, instead of maybe trying to work out 5 days a week, you know, you're saying I want to get 5 workouts in a week. Maybe I want to say I want to move 4 days this week. Because when we say workouts, we're talking about, you know, lifting in the gym, right? We visualize lifting in the gym, using a barbell, going to the gym. There's a lot of barriers there. Maybe we can't always get to the gym. Maybe we don't feel like working out. Maybe we feel like doing something else. But if we lower the barrier of entry to movement, that opens the door to a lot more things where we can still kind of check the box, but we can modify for our days. So movement could be going for a walk outside. Movement can be doing a 10-minute stretch video. Movement can be working out in the gym. Movement can be doing a home workout. Movement can be doing, you know, laundry and cleaning because you were walking up and down the steps a lot. Movement can be doing yard work. There's a lot of room for movement. Movement can be walking the dog, right? There's a lot there. So I think shifting our mindset around things, and that would be an example of a big one, really changes our perspective, but kind of still satisfies that perfectionist in us, not in a bad way though, right? We still get to check off the boxes. We're just lowering the barrier to entry to ourselves, okay? Another thing is that we're highly critical of ourselves. It's kind of funny though, because I have another friend who is like exactly like me, a perfectionist, but pretty much an extroverted version of me. It's Katie. Katie, I know you're probably listening. She's KT Inspire on Instagram if you want to follow her. She's pretty cool. You gotta check her out. But she is also highly critical of herself, but it's funny when I see her being highly critical of herself from an outside perspective, I'm like, you got this, girl. You're great. You're doing fantastic. But the same thing could be happening with me, and I'm so hard on myself. I don't know why that is, but we do it, right? Like we might be so happy for somebody else, but we're just so hard on ourselves. Sorry, Binks is just being wild right now. I wanted to make sure he didn't break anything. He's attacking like squirrels at the window because we have like a see-through bird feeder. It's a joy. It's a joy working from home. Now, let me see with my notes here. Take a sip of your water and hang out. Get up, stretch if you need to as I briefly read over these. Yes. So recently aside from the mindset shifts like I was talking about before, I've started also just kind of trying to frame my mind to have more fun with life and just laugh a little bit. Like, have you ever went in somewhere, like I had this example happen in yoga, like I've been to yoga multiple times, I'm comfortable with the area, but I still get nervous because that perfectionism kind of rules over me where I'm like, okay, I'm ready to perform. I'm starting at 100% walking through this door. I have to maintain that 100%. I know that sounds kind of weird, right? But that's, I feel like how my brain works. And when I walk in there, you know, you're like, okay, how do I act like I need to change myself to please whoever I'm talking to, so I have to adapt my personality so they don't give me a weird reaction or I disappoint them or whatever. So I'm like constantly changing myself to please everybody else, right? And I walk into the door and I have that rigid kind of energy. And then, you know, there's somebody next to me and I chat with them and I said like, oh, I just love it here. 'Cause she made like a couple little comments. I said, I love it here because there's no judgment. And she just kind of like, you know, was real casual. She's like, oh my God, yeah, right? No judgment. And she just like put her hands behind her and relaxed and chuckled. And for some reason, just seeing her kind of like lower the wall made me lower the wall because I matched her energy, right? But I think like just having fun with it or having somebody, like I've had a lot of workout clients and I absolutely love them. Like if they mess up, which you're totally allowed to do, they just kind of laugh at themselves and it's no big deal. And I've also had other ones where like, oh my God, I messed up, which, you know, would probably be me if I was a client. Oh my God, I messed up. This is terrible. I never want to do this ever again. I suck at it, right? Like that's the perfectionist mindset and that's the all or nothing. But if we learn to have fun with it and just laugh a little and learn to laugh at ourselves and embrace the mistakes, I think that makes that perfectionism a little bit easier to tackle. And that's something I'm working on. It's more of a mindset thing and constantly reminding myself in different situations. But I think it helps. Because I've noticed too, if I get a lot of anxiety or I'm trying to read the room and I'm afraid of what to say, I will be very closed off because I don't even consider myself an introvert. I'm more so like just afraid to talk in a fear of like saying the wrong thing. And I've struggled with this at work, like saying hi to people in the gym, which it's not because I don't like you or I'm mean and I don't want to say hi. A lot of times I'm like, oh, this person's personality, what if I say hi and they just keep walking? Or what if I say hi and they're in a bad mood? What if they don't want to be talked to? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I make up all these excuses instead of just doing it. And again, that's another big thing I'm working on. It's terrible. It really is terrible. But hey, we're just being transparent here, right? Speaking of kind of getting out of my comfort zone and like saying hi to people and things like that, I think with perfectionism, a lot of the time we're pushed by fear. I know that fueled my whole school career is that fear of not getting it done, not turning it in, not being perfect. The fear of what people thought of me really fueled me to be perfect, or at least attempt to be perfect. And now I feel like since I've experienced so many rounds of burnout, I've been dealing with all these, autoimmune conditions and hormonal imbalances, and I've been so run down, it's kind of allowed me to let the barrier down a little bit. I think that's kind of why they say when you're older, you start to not care as much. I mean, you have life experiences, you may go through certain pain, you may realize that like, hey, you gotta look out for you and not so much care about what other people think. And that just comes with time, age, and experience. So I think that is playing a role as well. But I just don't tolerate it as much anymore. But I also feel like that also, since I have the freedom to do that, that makes me a little bit more closed off. Where before I would be super nervous, my heart would be pounding, and I'd be like still doing the thing, talking to the person. Now I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna turn around and close myself off and not talk to anybody. Yeah, so that's where I'm at there. But again, it's a work in progress. And just a couple other things. I would say fear of failure, which we chatted about a little bit, is a big one. I'm not going to do something unless I feel like I'm going to be perfect at it or succeed. I think one big one that comes to mind that I struggle with is like memorizing stuff, like memorizing a script. Like we do sales calls at the gym for like coaching, and we role play, and I hate it because role playing, hypothetically, you're supposed to go in, you're supposed to do it, but it's gonna be a feedback session, right? Where like, this is what you did wrong, this is what you could do better, and this is what you did well. I'm like, oh no, I gotta nail it the first time. It has to be perfect because I'm performing and I want it to be 100%, because then it goes back to, hey, that person who's interviewing me, I don't want them to have to critique me. I don't want them to have to think about it. I want to be just so good that they're like, wow, you were great. You don't need any help. And it's ridiculous, right? Like, I don't know why I struggle with that. Like being graded and judged on things, I've always struggled with that. So I'm trying to be better with that as well. Which again leads me to procrastinate, that fear of failure, because then you want to push it off, which is kind of counterproductive, and you just want to avoid it because you're like, I'm not going to touch it unless I know that I can be perfect with it. But in reality, you do need to fail sometimes and mess up to improve. Which then leads to low self-esteem, because then we can't do things and we feel crappy because we weren't perfect, and then we just don't try it at all, and then we feel worse, and then we're just kind of in this endless cycle. Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of the end of my notes. I know it was a little bit of a ramble, but again, this is kind of my like experimental podcast of the video taping. I hope it uploads because we're almost at 30 minutes. I lowered the quality of it, which you can't really tell, but I'm hoping that will help a little bit. I'm excited though. So yeah, that is a little rundown, little update. I kind of took a mini break from the podcast because I was launching my 6-week challenge. I was dealing with all this hormone stuff. One by one, we're kind of getting things, my ducks in a row. I have a ton of doctor's appointments this week. I've been getting more organized, and I hope to share more of that process. As I'm coming out of this, I'm trying to document it and be open. And again, I think that kind of fights my perfectionism, right? But I'm curious, did any of these points resonate with you about the perfectionism? Just some of the talking points that I chatted about. I hope if it did, that maybe you feel seen, you feel heard, and maybe you can think of some ways to tackle it. let me know. I would love to chat with you. You can chat with me on IG. That's like my main hangout. Facebook, if you want. I have some links in the show notes as well, of some places you can find me. There's some good freebies in there as well for you. So be sure to check that out. And also, if you love the podcast, if you're on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and follow along for more videos with fun plant backgrounds. Or you can leave me a review over on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to music. Listen to podcasts. This will be available. All right, guys. So I think that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will chat soon. Bye for now.